Alright, in this video we're going to go ahead and take a look at the EVERCADE handheld device by Blaze Entertainment. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. Okay, so welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. And in this video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at another handheld device that's been on the market for a little while. Now, this is the EVERCADE, and it was manufactured by a company called Blaze Entertainment. Now, I'd like to give full disclosure that this package was in fact sent to me for review, and this video was not previewed in advance by anybody. Another thing I will mention is that Blaze Entertainment did provide me early access to their upcoming firmware version 1.3. Now, this is going to be something that I will cover later in the video, but for now, let's get this thing out of the box. In terms of what you get, obviously we have the EVERCADE handheld itself. We've got a quick start guide, a micro USB cable for charging, and because I was sent the premium pack, it also includes 3 different packs of games out of the box. We have the Atari Collection 1, which houses 20 classic Atari console version games, including Centipede, Asteroids, and Tempest. The second cartridge is a Namco Museum Collection 1, which again has all console games, including Galaxian, Pac-Man, and Dig Dug. And then finally we have the Interplay Collection, which actually interests me the most, with 6 games including titles like Earthworm Jim and Incantation. Now, the EVERCADE itself is actually really well built in terms of its quality. Construction does feel quite premium, the plastic is solid, and the form factor is actually really great in your hands. If you are at all familiar with a PSP, it's pretty close in size to that, but I can say that I'm not really in love with the color scheme personally, but I do see what they were going for with a classic retro gaming feel. Now, I hope in the future we can see some other color variations with maybe a more modern color scheme or something along those lines, because the white and red color scheme really isn't my jam. Now, in terms of the I/O, on the bottom of the device we have our volume control, a 3.5mm audio jack, and our micro USB port. On the top, we do have our power switch and a mini HDMI out, which is actually a really nice feature to have if you want to send the picture out to either a larger device or if you do like to stream your gameplay. Now, on the back is where we have our big selling feature here. This is where you're going to find a physical cartridge slot. Now, this is a huge draw about this device. It was designed to not rely on downloading and sideloading your own games, but to be able to purchase officially licensed cartridges for play on the handheld itself, which is actually kind of refreshing in the modern day market of micro SD card emulation devices. Now, I will mention that the carts I was sent are an incredibly tight fit, and I'm talking like it's a really tight fit, but I was told that this is an issue that has been resolved on the latest batch of retail cartridges. Overall, controls actually feel fairly good. I can say that the buttons themselves have a good feel and have great feedback and responsiveness, and although I don't like the visual style of the D-pad, it does work well enough, and certainly does the trick for all of the games that I've tested. One thing that I am not a huge fan of is the L and R buttons, and they are absolutely responsive and they certainly work as intended, but they have this tactile feedback and clicky sound, kind of like you're actually clicking a mouse, and I'm just not really a big fan. Now, I have a preference for the soft click style shoulder buttons myself, but again, this is all personal preference, and you may not care about this specifically. In terms of the internal specs on this thing, it has a 1.2 GHz quad-core ARM Cortex-A7 MP processor with a Mali 400 GPU. It has 256 megabytes of DRAM and has a 2000 mAh battery capacity, which will provide approximately 4 or so hours of gameplay. The screen is a 4.3-inch display with an aspect ratio of 16:9. It has a resolution of 480 by 272, just like on the PSP. Now the screen is actually quite bright, and from my understanding this is an improvement that was introduced in this current beta version of firmware. I should mention this new firmware has fixed a ton of issues previously reported, including things like stuttering audio, buzzing noises, performance issues, and even in some cases some button mapping. And it does sound like this firmware is going to trickle its way out to the general public, likely in the next few weeks. Now getting back to the device itself, I found it interesting that there's actually no pre-built operating system or menu built into the device. It appears to all live on the cartridges and populate after it's been inserted, which you can do while the device is even on. The menu navigation is very basic, but it has everything that you need at the touch of a menu button. You have options to switch between full screen or original aspect ratio, 4 different brightness settings, a menu sound toggle, and even multi-language support. In-game menus also allow for the creation of save states and loading previously saved states as well. Now before we get into emulation, I do kind of want to show off the games and the cases in which they come in. Now I'm not going to go through all of the individual games, you can check that out yourself. I will leave links in the description down below, but I do want to show you these really neat custom shells for the cartridges, and they even include a full color manual outlining details of all of the games within the collection. And I know this is really kind of like a novelty type of feature, but it is certainly a nice touch and really adds to the overall feel of the cartridge cases. Now the emulation on this device is actually quite impressive. They are using really solid commercially licensed emulators like Blastem for Sega Genesis titles, and it really does show. You don't get any visual screen tearing, any stuttering, or any input lag at all. The games feel really smooth and run well. And I found this to be true for every single game that I tested, to be honest. The games just run the way they're supposed to. It feels natural to play them on the device in this form factor and with this hardware. Now that being said, there are a couple drawbacks that I'm going to mention here. Although the screen is really visually bright and vibrant from directly in front of it, it doesn't necessarily have the greatest viewing angles. Now keep in mind here, if you are playing this device, you will have it directly in front of you. So the less than ideal viewing angles really don't bother me at all. Another thing to consider is the fact that it does use a 16:9 aspect ratio screen, which a lot of you are probably thinking that doesn't make any sense for retro gaming. Now I think Blaze Entertainment did this specifically for a reason. We are starting to see the release of some indie games and additional collections, and I do love that they're kind of going down this route, but I think that having the 16:9 aspect ratio will allow them access to a wide variety of indie titles that they could port in. For example, they have the Indie Heroes Collection coming up for release in early 2021, with a number of those games being able to properly utilize the full screen. Now, I would love to see them continue on the indie game route as much as possible. The only other thing that I can really think of is that there is an obvious lack of arcade titles in any of the existing collections. And when I say there's a lack of, there are no arcade titles whatsoever that have been released. And I can see some people being really disappointed in this, especially since the device is literally called the EVERCADE. Now with that said, EVERCADE did confirm on their Twitter account that they do have some plans to release some arcade titles in 2021. So there is still some hope for those interested in playing arcade titles in a handheld cartridge format. Now the EVERCADE Premium Pack retails for $99, which does include the 3 game packs that I mentioned earlier in this video. And additional game cartridges are about $20 a pop, but I'm going to leave some links in the description down below if you guys are interested. But coming around full circle, my thoughts on this device is that it's actually a really well designed product. The material that it's constructed from feels quite premium, and it has a great weight to it fitting naturally in your hands. Game selection is fairly robust with over 10 collections currently available and many more coming down the road. I think they could improve the visuals with other color variants and would like to see them have another go at the shoulder buttons personally, but if you're in the market for a cartridge-based, premium-built handheld to play console games on, this may actually be a really good option for you. That said, if you're really only interested in arcade titles, then you're going to want to wait until next year to consider this investment. One last thing that I'm going to mention is it does look like Evercade is running a giveaway for their device. And all you really need to do to enter is type !raffle in their Discord competition channel. Now I'm going to leave some links to that in the description down below as well. But that's all I've got for you guys in this video. Leave me a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this device. Do you own one? And if so, what are some of the things that you like or dislike about it? If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video, thumbs down if you didn't. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will talk to you guys again real soon.